Wheat is Oklahoma's largest crop. By this time last year, farmers were already cutting what turned out to be a bumper crop. This year, many of the state's 8,500 growers will harvest at best half as much as a normal year, and at worst, none at all. That's because of a devastating 1-2 punch delivered by Mother Nature.
Bob Howard is firing up his cutter to make hay out of his failed wheat crop. His family's been farming this land near Altus since the mid-1880s, but this year, there will be no wheat harvest.
This is a fully matured grain head, or a head, wheat head, not a grain in it. It's had 4 or 5 major freezes on it and a worst drought that we've had in modern times.
Damage to the state's wheat crop is most severe in Oklahoma's southwest, west, and panhandle counties. Extreme drought conditions persisted through the entire growing season in those areas. But no parts of the state that grow wheat were spared the effects of at least some drought and freeze damage this year. Dry conditions affected the crop as soon as it was sown, says Oklahoma Wheat Commission Executive Director Mike Schulte.
The crop didn't emerge until December, in some parts maybe the first week of February, when normally a crop emerges at the end of September, maybe beginning of October. And we see that when the crop emerges that late, a lot of times that we'll see about a 50% reduction in yield prospects.
Even in areas of the state where wheat fields emerged on time or look green and developed heads, freeze damage prevented many plants from pollinating to make grain.
The condition of the 2013 wheat crop in Oklahoma is fairly poor.
Jeff Edwards is the OSU Extension small grains specialist.
There's not going to be much wheat to harvest in far southwest Oklahoma. In the Panhandle in Texas and Beaver County, we have received some rain and we're on our way to a decent crop, but this last freeze has severely injured that crop and it's questionable how much we'll harvest there.
In April, growers in southwest Oklahoma anticipated their wheat harvest would be about 40% smaller than usual, mainly due to drought. Then came a series of freezes. Those devastated the already stressed wheat, according to OSU Extension educator Gary Strickland.
Our last freeze down here that really hurt us at the end was a May 2nd freeze where we got down to 26 to 29 degrees for over 4 hours. I would say 75 to 85% of our acres are now gone.
Including much of the wheat Matt Muller grows near Martha in Jackson County.
Most of my crop is grown under contract for a seed company, Null Seed Farms up at Hobart. And generally I will deliver them 35,000 bushels. So about 30,000 acres will get planted off my production. We may have less than 1,000 bushels total to deliver this year.
Muller isn't sure even that will be usable.
It's highly likely that test weights will be very light, the seedling vigor will be very low, and that wheat may not be fit for planting. And there's already farmers for hundreds of miles south of us into Texas scrambling trying to find wheat north of us, so that's going to put a lot of pressure in north central Oklahoma or somewhere in Kansas where they're growing some wheat so we can have seed to plant.
Recent rains in central, northern, and eastern parts of the state perked up wheat plants just in time to set grain. But late freezes also caused light to moderate damage in those areas as well.
From April 24th until May 3rd, many producers, depending on where their locations were, had up to 6 freeze events for the state, compared to what we normally deal with maybe 1 or 2 late freezes.
Despite drought and freeze damage, the USDA anticipates Oklahoma farmers will harvest about 3.8 million acres of wheat, with a yield of 30 bushels an acre. That puts this year's total crop estimate at around 114 million bushels. The Oklahoma Grain and Feed Association's estimate is much lower. It expects farmers to harvest between 3 and 3.2 million acres, with a yield closer to 85.5 million bushels of wheat. Schulte says even that's optimistic.
Looking at the crop, it looks like we're going to have probably half the production of what we normally would be in a decent crop year.
Harvest totals for the last 5 years show even though wheat is the state's #1 crop, growing it is always a gamble. Last year saw a bumper crop of just under 155 million bushels harvested. The year before, much lower, just 70 million bushels. 2010 was a good year, 121 million bushels of wheat produced, but just 77 million bushels were harvested in 2009. And 2008 was a tremendous harvest, 166.5 million bushels of wheat. That uncertainty is why Bob Howard buys crop insurance.
This year, insurance is going to pay me.
That means next year he'll be able to plant again in hopes that that crop will be better than this one, which he says is so bad it didn't even make very much hay.